Ken Snake Stabler lived life to the max. He was a badass off and on the field. This is his story with that as our frame. The life of the NFL's badass. A rebel who had an awesome life and a Hall of Fame career. He'd fit perfectly into the misfits of the 70s Oakland Raiders. That team epitomized old school, hard-hitting football, physicality that bordered on a felony. And they had some really out there personalities. Snake himself may or may have not had the smell of booze on his breath, oftentimes when he leant into the huddle, and he collected women's underwears from his various escapades. He played at Alabama where he'd back up to Joe Namath. I'm sure those two had some pretty fun nights. But Snake was not just a guy who liked to party and then ride the coattails of great teams, although he did get suspended from Alabama after skipping practice to see his girlfriend. In his own words, he once took a girlfriend off for a little romancing before practice. While his off-field behavior was never a detriment to his performance, that specific incident did get him demoted to the fifth-string quarterback, but it didn't take him long to earn the starting role back, and quickly show why. Down 3-0 against rival Auburn, Stabler cemented himself in Alabama history with his run in the mud as he scrambles 47 yards for a touchdown, securing a 7-3 victory. The origins of the nickname Snake vary. Stabler himself said it was from his coach, who called him Snake, remarking on his elusiveness, and it does seem to spawn from his punt return days in high school. After rushing for a touchdown one game, his coach called him Snake as he marched back to the sideline as he ran like a snake. It's not as though he had a record 40-yard time though. But he was shifty. He had the ability to outmaneuver would-be tacklers. Stabler was drafted by the Raiders in the second round of the 1968 draft and was sent to the Continental Football League to work through a knee injury. After just 2 games in the CFL, the Raiders brought him back. But in 1969, he had enough of being a backup and quit. For a brief moment. He would then go back to John Madden shortly after, pleading for another chance. And Madden gave it to him. His first noteworthy game came against the Steelers, none other than the Immaculate Reception game. He subbed in for Darryl LaMonica and led the Raiders to a late fourth quarter drive. You could say there would be no Immaculate Reception without Stabler. His late game rushing touchdown forced the Steelers into desperation mode, so Steelers fans can thank Snake for one of the greatest players in NFL history. Okay, that might be asking for too much. Despite that performance, it wouldn't be until the following season he'd get the starting role. After starting 1-2 with Darryl LaMonica and scoring 0 touchdowns, Stabler got his shot. He led the Raiders to a 17-10 victory over the Cardinals, and the starting role was now his. They were rough and tough, and while Snake didn't dish out the hard hits, he certainly took them, refusing to slide when he did run. He played hard and lived life hard. His favourite player was quarterback Bobby Lane, who also had a reputation for drinking alongside his football abilities. Snake would rock up to practice, shades on, bloodshot eyes after an all-nighter, and then he'd proceed to throw 3 touchdowns for 300 yards. A man that once proclaimed he read the playbook by the light of a jukebox the night before a game. But the sport came naturally to Snake. He didn't need to study the game extensively. He once skipped practice on Veterans Day because he was, quote, a veteran. Of course, a different type of veteran. While he did like to have fun, when he laced up, he was locked in. And he was clutch. The bigger the situation, the calmer he got, John Madden said. He had that steady hand. And he was certainly part of some of the most memorable and clutch moments in the game. The Immaculate Reception as discussed, then you also had the Sea of Hands, the game that was decided in the final seconds, as Stabler connected with Clarence Davis, who fought for the ball and somehow came down with it. The Ghost to the Post, a 42-yard pass to Dave Casper, in the final moments of double overtime that led to the game-tying field goal against the Baltimore Colts. And then there's the Holy Roller, a controversial call in what was officially ruled a forward fumble and was recovered by Dave Casper for a touchdown. He was also cool in the pocket, had a quick release, and was very accurate. The most accurate thrower. If you want the ball between 4 and the 0, he'd put it there. If you wanted it in the ear hole, Kenny could put it there. The man Stabler was, a fun, mischievous quarterback, could be seen as a means to handle the brutality of the sport. This was the 70s, right? You get a concussion, you're probably back in a couple plays later. You played on broken bones. Players would be lucky to get $30,000, and most would have another job. The sport was far more violent, and the money was not as good as it is today, so you had to have a good reason to play. They played for the love of the game, so why not enjoy yourself while you're at it? As I said, he was perfect for the Raiders. A bunch of misfits that brought a swagger and a personality to a rather uptight institution. Be that Snake with his free spirit, party hard, play harder attitude, Jack Tatum who sought contact unlike many others in the history of the sport, or fellow hardcore partier John Matuzak. Stabler's best year came in 1974 when he won the MVP, leading the Raiders to a 12-2 record and finishing as the highest scoring team in the league, although they'd lose to the Steelers in the championship game. He led the Raiders to 5 straight title games with a Super Bowl in 1976, but after missing the playoffs for consecutive seasons, he was traded to the Oilers in 1980. He then faced his old team in the wildcard game, but lost 27-7. The Oilers didn't find much success after that, and he ended up on the Saints in 1982. However, with another knee injury and Father Time calling, he hung it up for good in 1984.